Welcome back to the Distressed Princess. I'm Rhonda.
We are having some fabulous spring-like weather at my house, and so I have my doors open with where the breeze coming through, but there's a chance that you guys might hear my neighbor moving some hay with his tractor. I have to apologize, but I really hope that you all are enjoying some beautiful weather too. The first DIY today is a Kirkland's dupe of this plush bunny rabbit that they have, and it gave me an idea to go and search for another bunny rabbit that's less than $60. And here she is, a 24-inch tall standing plush bunny rabbit at the Dollar Tree Plus for only $5. The only problem is that is some pretty bright clothes that she's wearing. So I'm going to be doing some alterations and redesigning how this rabbit looks to fit in with a more rustic farmhouse Easter scene. I started by cutting off all of her tags. And I wanted to replace the felt egg that's attached to her arm with something else, so I just cut the strings that attached to the egg. I'm sorry, I got it off camera and I didn't realize it, but all I did was cut the strings. And I left the strings dangling from her arm. I just cut the egg away. Now the fun part is redressing her. So I thrifted this little dress for like $2, and it was the perfect colors, I thought, to make this a springtime bunny that would be like in a farmhouse. Now this is a Minnie Mouse dress in a size 2T, which was way too big for this bunny. So if you could find a 1T, that might be perfect. I had to take up the shoulders on this dress, but all I'm going to do is cut them, and then I'm going to hot glue them back together the correct size. So this is looking at the back side of the dress, and if you wanted to, you could use needle and thread and this would look better, but you're not going to see the back of the bunny. I didn't care what the back of the dress looked like, and I'm going to cinch up the shoulders anyway with a little jute string so this does not show at all. When I put the dress onto the bunny, I let her original yellow collar stick out because it matched some of the little yellow flowers in the dress. And here's how you don't see what was done on the back of the dress, because I am cinching up those straps so that they're not just falling down off of her shoulder. And I just did that with a piece of jute string, and I tied it in a bow, and then I let her original sleeves hang out underneath. Now the hardest stuff is done. Now on my dress, I had a little Minnie Mouse picture that I wanted to cover up. It depends on what dress you find at the thrift store. You may find the perfect thing that fits the bunny perfect and you don't have to do any alterations. But in case you have some little things, little characters that you might want to cover up like I am, then I suggest using a thrifted piece of crochet, a doily or something like this. And I cut apart a piece big enough to fit over the character so it just looks like it's part of the pocket. And then I hot glue that right onto the dress. And this dress had a button, a little wooden button that I poked right through. It was already attached, but if you can add any embellishments like this, then that makes it extra special. Next, I wanted to make her a purse, and this is such an easy thing to do. Here's another little toddler shirt that I loved the material, the print. So I'm just going to cut off the bottom of the sleeve because it already has some elastic around the end of it. And that way, all I have to do is make a gathering stitch on the other end, and then I'll have a cute little purse. So you'll need to turn this little piece inside out so you'll be stitching on the wrong side. A gathering stitch is very simple. You just go in and out with the needle, and you can gather it up by pulling the thread at the end. Then you pull it tight and knot your thread. Now you can turn the material right side out and you have a little purse. The next thing I did was stuff the little purse with some cotton so that it would be filled out. And this is why I chose to leave the strings on the bunny's arm, because it saves you work, it becomes the purse straps, and it's already attached to the bunny. So all you have to do is hot glue the strings, one on each side of the purse. I put some flowers in her purse, and now I'm going to take some Dollar Tree carrots, and I'm going to take 2 of them and put them in her little pocket. Here's a reminder of what the $60 Kirkland's bunny looked like, and here's mine. The next Easter DIY is a Pottery Barn inspired pillow with a price tag of $79.50, and that's just for the cover. I started out thinking I would use this pillow that I thrifted at the Goodwill, but I actually wind up using a bigger pillow. And this is a pillow sham that is thrifted, and it has embroidery on it a lot like the Pottery Barn, even though it's not the same colors. So this is a pillow inspired by Pottery Barn, not exactly a dupe. But anyhow, first I put this pillow inside to determine how I was going to alter this sham to make it smaller to go like on a couch for a couch pillow. And the first thing I did was cut the giant tag off. Why they had to put such a huge tag on these pillow shams and pillows? So what I decided to do was cut the pillow a couple of inches over where the pillow is tucked inside. Then I cut the scallopy edge off of the original pillow sham so I could reattach it to the new modified pillow sham. Now then, you can see how it'll line up when I reattach it. It's a little long because this is the long side of the pillow, but once you get to attaching it, there's only just a few little centimeters that need to be dealt with, and I'll show you how to do that too. For this one, I got out my needle and thread and I stitched the quilted pieces together. So the quilted pieces are getting stitched together, and then the thinner like backing pieces, they are going to be pieced together using some of the heat bond tape that I have on hand. I know it's probably hard to see because of the pattern on this sham, but taking care of the little centimeters that wanted to hang off the edge, you can do just a little creative folding on the corners and then stitch it in place and you would never tell. Now, as for the backing piece, this here that we have cut apart, but we need to reattach to itself, I'm going to use some heat bond tape. And if you've never used this, it's super simple. Just roll it out the length that you need. Then set your iron to its max setting and sandwich the heat bond tape in between the 2 pieces of fabric. Then lay a dampened washcloth over the material and press it down with your hot iron for 10 seconds. In this case, I started in the middle. I usually start on one side or the other and work my way across, but I felt like I needed to start in the middle with this sham because it was cut a little weird. And so now you have a smaller pillow cover to go like on a couch. To make the bunny that goes in the center, I'm using a punch needle. So I am dabbling in punch needle art right now, and so I'm just a beginner and I'm not the one to teach you exactly the ins and outs and details of it, but I can get you started. I picked out a large embroidery hoop because this is a large pillow cover, and I measured how much room I have to work with to make my bunny. This is important because I'm going to have to print out a bunny to make the bunny. You'll see. So here is the Google image that I'm working with, and I printed it out on my black and white printer. So the bunny fits right in the center of the embroidery hoop. Now you'll get out your material that you're using, and I have started with monk's cloth. It has a bigger weave and it's easier for beginners. Then cut a square of fabric to fit very well outside of the embroidery hoop. and place the material over the inner part of the embroidery hoop and then place the outer part around the outside. Tighten down the screw at the top just by hand at first, and then pull around the edges, making the material as tight as possible, stretched across the embroidery hoop. You want it to be like a drum. When you have the material stretched, then go back with some pliers or something and tighten the screw even more. Now we will thread the punch needle. And the way that this is done is with one of these, I don't know what you call them, they're little wire like threaders just for punch needles, or at least I think it's just for punch needles. You go through the outside hole and then down through the center. And if that doesn't make sense, just kind of zoom in and see what I'm doing here. Push it all the way down and the wire loop comes out the end. That's where you put the thread through, and then pull the wire and the thread comes back through with it. There are different sizes of punch needles and different sizes of thread, so you match up the thread that will flow through your punch needle without getting caught up inside. So this is what it looks like before you begin. There should be a little small tail at the end of your punch needle, and now you're ready to start. But I suppose we better put our image on there first. So it's very simple. Just cut out your image to fit on the underneath side so that you can see through it just like this. Tape it down and then trace with a marker. Don't stress if your tracing doesn't come out just perfect, because the yarn will cover up the marker. Now you're ready to start punch needling. And so you punch through to the other side and pull the tail to that side. And then start making your stitches. You don't have to hold the tail, it'll hold itself in place. Just start stitching along and skipping 2 or 3 little squares along the way. And it's very important to leave slack in your yarn, because you need that yarn freed up to flow through the punch needle. And these are the loops that are happening on the other side. So the side that you're working on, the side that you see, is actually the underside. It's the loopy side that will be the actual punch needle art. It's also important when you punch to go all the way down to the base of the punch needle. This way your loops on the other side are going to all be uniform. If you have any mishaps like this, you can just pull your thread back through and do it again. And usually when stitches come out like that, it is because something is blocking your thread from flowing through the punch needle. Maybe your hand got rested on top of the thread, or something is holding it up. And start with doing the outline of your design first. This is the next morning. I've started filling in the rabbit, and it's just as simple as doing the outline. Just make rows of stitches and fill in the entire rabbit. When you've filled in the rabbit and you're ready to end your yarn, pull your punch needle through and hold on to the yarn so it doesn't pull your stitches out, and then cut it. It's that simple. Now you can take your design out of the embroidery hoop and then cut it out of the material. You have to be careful not to cut too close to your stitches, and give yourself a wide margin around your design so that your material doesn't unravel and your stitches don't come out. Then hot glue the edges of the monk's cloth down around the bunny. You could stitch the bunny to your pillow sham, but I'm just going to use hot glue because I don't ever plan on washing this. I am not certain what would happen to punch needle art if it were to go into the washing machine. I don't think it would come out good. I'm not sure. You can Google it, but I'm too chicken to wash anything that I've punch needled. Instead of making a pom-pom, I just bought one of these little bunny craft kits from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use one of its pieces for the tail of my bunny, and I hot glued it on too. The next Easter DIY is made with this picture that I thrifted at the Goodwill for only $1 and some change. You can use any kind of picture frame that you can find for cheap. I had to remove the clip from this one and it left a little hole, but that didn't bother me. Then I painted the inside of the frame with some celery chalk paint, and the inside of this frame was sort of a canvas material, so I'm spraying it down with a little bit of water and then adding the chalk paint, and it really helps to spread it out and paint evenly over the canvas material. Then once you get your base layer of green paint down, go back with some white chalk paint and do a few brush strokes across just to put some white color in there too. Then you can paint the frame with your choice color of chalk paint, and I went with white chalk paint, of course. This is how it's looking so far. I only used one coat of the white chalk paint, and I did it just in a rustic sort of way, and I left some of the underneath color showing. Next, I'm going to show you how to do a wreath stencil when you don't have a wreath stencil. So I have these essential stencils, and they have some floral designs on them, and I thought that maybe I could use some of their leaves to make a wreath, and I'll show you just how I did it. First, I painted on some circles, and you want multiple circles. Just keep drawing because this is going to make it look like a grapevine wreath. Now before you start adding your stencil, you want to use some tape and tape off the places that you don't want to be stenciled onto your piece. So I'm carefully taping off these flowers and extra stems that I don't want, and I just want that little frond piece, that little, I don't know if that's the right word, that little fern looking piece. Then using a stencil brush, dip into chalk paint and wipe out the excess and begin making circular motions onto the stencil, and this is going to give you a fine stencil with no bleed through. Then keep going around the circles that you painted with these little pieces, and a wreath will start to form. Now that I have my wreath, I'm going to add my words, and I chose this one. Again, this is by Essential Stencil. I will leave a link in my description box for their website, and they provide excellent stencils and good value for your money. So I chose this one, and I'm going to go with a brown chalk paint. I didn't want black. I thought brown might go with the green a little better. With these reusable stencils, you do have a gap in between some of the letters and words. If that bothers you, then you can go in with a fine tipped brush and just fill in those gaps. And for the last DIY, I'm going to transform this broken lamp into a candlestick. Most of the time, these lamps just screw apart, so you can take the socket out, and then underneath of the socket will be a metal piece that you can usually unscrew by hand. It was kind of glued on. I had to use my husband's brute strength to really get a grip on it with something, and he was able to unscrew it for me. But I've done this by myself before, so it just depends on if they've glued the piece down or not. And I forgot to take the tag off. Always take the tag off of your projects. So now all we have to do is paint it up. So I'm using the color Picket Fence with my Fusion Mineral Paint. But once I got it painted up, then I realized that it was a little too bright white to match the other things that I had made. So then I went back and I brushed some antique parchment acrylic paint over it to kind of give it a more antique white color.
Now let's take a look back at all our Easter DIYs today. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Until next time, bye!